Welcome back, Trailblazers. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to take a moment to talk about a tool that has completely transformed the way I plan and navigate my hikes, AllTrails Plus. As the Trailheads Ambassador and the organizer of the Yakima Valley Trekkers, I'm out on the trails a lot. One of my favorite features of AllTrails Plus is the ability to edit and create my own maps. Conditions change, fallen trees, washed out sections, or even a last-minute reroute. And with AllTrails Plus, I can adjust my route on the fly and share it with others so everyone stays informed and safe. AllTrails Plus also gives you offline maps, wrong turn alerts, and 3D trail previews to help you stay on track and make the most of your adventure. And the best part, you can get 30% off an AllTrails Plus membership with my exclusive link in the episode show notes. So whether you're planning your next big trek or just looking for a new trail to explore, AllTrails Plus has you covered. Check it out and let's hit the trail. Welcome everyone to the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host, Ivan, and together we'll embark on a weekly journey, connecting with extraordinary hikers from all corners of the United States and beyond. Throughout these spring months, we've had the privilege of conversing with remarkable individuals. Their experiences and adventures will leave you yearning to hit the trails. Season 3 fan favorite, Anna, aka Magic, is back, and this time she's gearing up for another adventure of a lifetime. The week this episode drops, Magic will be taking her first steps on the Pacific Crest Trail, a 2,650-mile journey from Mexico to Canada. We dive into her training, gear choices, and what she's most excited about as she embarks on this epic thru-hike. She shares how her past hikes have shaped her, the mental prep needed for months on the trail, and the unexpected challenges of planning a PCT trek. We also talk trail magic, resupply strategies, and the emotional roller coaster of long-distance hiking. Tune in and send some good vibes her way as she sets out on this life-changing journey. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode with our guest, Magic. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I have a really special guest with me today. It's been 2 years since she's been on the podcast, and she's going to be catching us up with what she's been up to since her first appearance on the podcast and the amazing trip that she has planned in just a few weeks. And as you're listening to this, she's 1 day away from getting on the PCT. Her name is Anna, otherwise known as Magic. Thank you, Anna, for coming back on the podcast. We always like to start off by having our guests share a little bit about themselves and how they got started hiking.
Great. Well, Ivan, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be back here. Again, I am Anna, or Magic, and I first got into hiking and backpacking really when I was in college. So my first ever backpacking trip, I was a junior at East Carolina University. I'm originally from Western North Carolina. So I went to the eastern part of the state for school, and if you didn't know, it is very flat and very hot down in the eastern part of the Carolinas. And that was very different than the mountainous environment that I grew up outside of Asheville. And I quickly learned that I really missed the mountains. And so I went back home every chance that I could get. And my junior year of college, I had the opportunity to go on a backpacking trip with the university's outdoor leadership program, who I worked for. We went on a backpacking trip. I think it was 2 nights on the Appalachian Trail through Grayson Highlands State Park in Virginia. And it was an absolutely life-changing experience. It just showed me what I was capable of physically. It introduced me to this whole new form of travel where you carry everything you need on your back, and just really ignited this passion and interest in me that I have continued to pursue through adulthood. So it's something that I just love getting to do and really enjoy being able to talk about.
Yeah, and I really loved our first episode because you shared with the community your experiences through hiking the Appalachian Trail. And I feel like so much has happened in the 2 years since then. You got married. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
And then as part of your honeymoon, you did the West Highland Way in Scotland, but you also started being guides in the Smoky Mountains. Can you catch us up on how life has been over the last 2 years?
Yeah, we've been super duper busy. So my husband, his name is Cade. His trail name is Truffles, like mushrooms. We met when we were through hiking the Appalachian Trail. And we were from 2 different parts of the U.S. He is from Mississippi. And after we finished the trail, we decided that we wanted to stay together and just continue our relationship long distance. It didn't take long for us to figure out that that really wasn't jiving with us. We also went back to work at corporate jobs behind computers. And after having just walked for 6 months straight, that was really, really challenging. So pretty quickly, we started brainstorming ways that we could, 1, be in the same physical location, but then 2, continue to pursue our passion of the outdoors. So we landed on guiding and picked the Smokies just really because that was kind of a central place for us between our 2 families. And we just love being in the Southeast. And so we moved together to Gatlinburg, Tennessee in the spring of 2022. Started our first season as backpacking guides, working for a small company called A Walk in the Woods, again, based out of Gatlinburg. Did that for a year and then decided to do the Arizona Trail, which is an 800-mile trail from the U.S.-Mexican border down to the very tip of Arizona all the way up to the Utah border. We planned to do the whole thing and ended up only doing just over half. We got off trail in Pine, Arizona. There was a lot of snow and we just didn't feel equipped mentally or physically to handle all of the snow. So we got off trail and turned that adventure into a big road trip. We saw, I think, 10 national parks in the month that we lived out of a Honda Accord, which was kind of fun. So that was, I guess, the beginning of 2023. Then we got married. We had been home, I think, for a week or 2 and got married on the Appalachian Trail, which was really special. My brother-in-law, who also did the AT, he facilitated our wedding, I guess is the way to say it. Officiated. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. So that was a really, really neat experience. And throughout 2023, after the Arizona Trail and when we got back home and after marriage, we continued guiding. And that led us all the way into 2024, where we took our belated honeymoon on the West Highland Way because we are thru hikers. We love to hike. Why would we not go on a fabulous vacation to hike? So that's really what we've been doing. Finished out the guiding season. Somewhere along the way, too, I became a yoga instructor. So between hiking and yoga and married life, we stay pretty busy.
Yeah, and it was such a great thing to see you continue your yoga journey, and you're now a teacher, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I have the awesome opportunity to teach several classes every week at a small studio in Johnson City called Saluna Sage. It's been such a privilege to be a part of the team there and to see myself grow as a yoga teacher, but then also to the students who I get to interact with on a regular basis to see their practice grow as well. And I think it's really cool to be able to incorporate my love for yoga and nature and how these 2 things can really balance each other out. I see a lot of similarities between when I'm hiking and when I'm practicing yoga and teaching yoga. So it's cool to see those connections on and off the mat for sure.
You know, I wanted to touch base on the West Highland Way because you traveled to Scotland to do the trek. How was it doing the trek in Europe compared to, you know, the AT and Arizona Trail in the United States? How did the trail life compare between the 2?
Yeah, it was a totally different experience. And this was the first time that Kate and I had flown internationally together. I had only ever been out of the country a couple other times prior to that. Kate had never been out of the country. So it was a really big learning curve for both of us because also, too, on top of just international travel, we were carrying all of our backpacking gear, which there are certain things that you can and can't fly with, things that you can have in a carry-on and things that need to be in a checked bag. So we did a lot of research prior to getting there. One thing, too, about the West Highland Way is there's a lot of reservations that you have to make beforehand just because it is such a popular trail and accommodations are pretty limited. So we had made all of our reservations. We had our itinerary pretty well set, and that was a very different experience to these other trails that we had done because on the AT and the Arizona Trail, you plan maybe a week at a time from resupply point to resupply point. But on the West Highland Way, we were only out there for a week, and we knew every single night where we were camping and staying at bed and breakfast, where we were eating. So that part was kind of nice because we did all the legwork beforehand. But in terms of flying, it was nice because there were 2 of us. And so we checked one bag with all of our, we called them our questionable items. So that's where we had like our pocket knives or trekking poles, tent stakes, stuff like that. And then we kept one of our backpacks in, acted as the carry-on that we had some clothing or toiletries, everything that we would need immediately if our checked bag was to get lost. The only thing too that you can't fly with is fuel. So that was just something that we had to navigate once we got there. But we ate every single meal in a restaurant. So we ended up not even using our stoves at all, which was really, really nice. nice. It very much was a luxury hike. It was a good honeymoon.
Oh, I love that. And I'm glad you answered it because that's one of my questions is because I've been researching what I can take on an upcoming trip. And some people have said trek poles are fine, but then others say it just depends on the country or the agent.
I had heard similar stuff. I mean, worst case scenario, you could try to bring them on as a carry-on, and then if they say no, then you have to throw them away or part with them at the airport, which is sad. Then you can buy a new pair when you get to the place that you're going, but that's not necessarily a cheap piece of gear to replace. So yeah, that's what we did. It worked really well for us. We had our first time flying with gear was when we flew to Arizona, or we drove to Arizona and then took a small flight from Utah to Tucson. That was the first time that we had to try to figure out like, oh, what can we and can't we fly with? Thankfully, I feel like there's a lot of information online that we found to be very helpful. So we are not the first people that have asked these questions, and sometimes that's a good reminder.
Oh, for sure. And Anna, one thing that I really enjoyed following along is your blog, Magic in the Mountains. I feel like it started with your post about post-trail life after finishing the AT, and it's now expanded to include your journeys on the Arizona Trail, on the West Highland Way, and other adventures. How have you seen the blog evolve over the last couple years, and can we expect to see maybe some posts while you're on the PCT, or are you going to wait until after the journey's over?
That's a great question. So I'll answer the later part of that first. I do plan to blog. I'll be blogging for the trek as I'm out there. And I did that while I was on the Arizona Trail. We have a separate, like my blog for the trek posts to the trek. And then, so that will be updating live while I'm out there. After I finished the Arizona Trail, that's when I came home and then moved everything also onto my blog. And so I think that's probably what I will do as I'm out there. So somewhere out in the internet, there will be Anna Magic on the PCT. Whether it'll be centralized on my blog, Magic in the Mountains, or if it'll come from the trek, I haven't decided yet. But eventually, it will all be in one centralized location. But yeah, my blog has changed pretty significantly since I started it. So when I was on the AT, I kept a journal every single night, and it was just this very therapeutic activity of right as I was going to bed, I would just write out what happened for the day. And it was something that I have just really treasured going back over and looking through. And so when I got home from the trail, I wanted to digitize that and connect my written journals with the photos that I'd taken for that day. So that is kind of where my blog came from. Magic in the Mountains just made sense because I am magic. I was in the mountains. It's not hard to piece together. But WordPress was the platform that I used. And somewhere along the way, I started writing for the trek and would post my articles on there as well, and just really discovered this love of writing that I previously hadn't known existed. And again, we've talked about all of the crazy travels that I've had over the past few years. And so life just kind of got busy, and writing became something that it was really easy to just let fall to the wayside. And I guess sometime this summer, maybe the early fall, we knew that we were going to be going on the PCT, and I really wanted to try to reignite my blog. I had all these ideas. I had continued writing for the trek, but really hadn't pursued writing other than just writing these random articles here and there. And so being able to reignite my blog was something that I just became very passionate about, and I started working really hard towards. The thing that became very challenging is that I decided to transition to a different platform. So I switched over from Wix was what I started with, and now I use WordPress. And that transition was very, very challenging because I'm not very tech savvy. I had no experience really with either platform and has just been learning as I have gone. And it was very frustrating. It's taken me a long time to get my blog to look the way that I wanted it to look. Now I'm very proud of it. So thank you for having looked at it. That means a lot to me because it has been an absolute huge labor of love, especially moving my content from the one site to the other, just because I had to move. I had, I think, 169 trail journals from the AT alone that I moved over, and then starting to write all of these new blogs and articles and things. So you touched on the fact that there's stuff from all the different trails that I've done. And then too, there's just musings. I've written about trail romance has been a big topic just because Cade and I have that common connection point. And then any other article that I've had published online will get linked there. there as well. So I try really hard to keep it up to date. And it's been fun. I enjoy hearing when people have looked at it. It makes me feel so happy because I have put so much effort into it. And I am glad that it looks good.
Magic, I really appreciate you giving us the insight into trail life, both on and off the trail. And I definitely recommend listeners, when they get a chance, to check out her blog. Your writing has been just an absolute joy to read throughout your adventures.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I consider myself a techie, Magic, and I have the hardest time with WordPress. I feel like it gives you too much customization, and like the simplest tasks sometimes take the longest time. So I feel your pain. I've had to do a transition to and from WordPress, and it's always rough.
Man, I feel like now I finally kind of gotten my groove and I can get it to perform mostly the way that I want to. But yes, I have watched a lot of YouTube videos about it. My husband has seen me almost throw my computer across the room on multiple occasions. It is a work in progress and something that I can hope to continue to be able to update as I'm out on the trail.
You know, one thing I did want to touch base on, and it's something that was recent that you're able to share on your Instagram. You're able to attend your first ever press trip with Teva, and it seems like it was a really great transformative experience for you. How did it feel to kind of step into that world of content creation alongside other writers and outdoor professionals?
Yeah, it was a super validating experience just because I had no idea that press trips even existed, that was something that brands did. And to get this random message, it came through my blog that someone had reached out to me on the contact form that this PR person had found my blog and was interested in me attending this press event. And this is kind of embarrassing to admit, but at first I didn't think it was legitimate. I was really convinced that it was some scam and that I was going to be kidnapped if I went on this trip. And so I responded and asked for more information. They told me where they were staying. I called the place that they had the reservations at to confirm, is this a real trip? Do these people really have these reservations? It was happening in Gatlinburg, which is not far from where we live. And so my husband drove out there with me to make sure that things were legit. They were. I didn't get kidnapped. I had a great time. But yeah, it was a huge, just eye-opening experience. And again, just made me feel very valid as a writer, and that the work that I have been doing, somebody somewhere is seeing it and appreciates it. So that just made me feel really, really good. And seeing it was also, though, pretty intimidating because I was there with published authors, these very successful freelance writers, and I had a really hard time even introducing myself as a writer. I kept just saying, I'm just a hiker. I don't really know what I'm doing here. And someone told me, it was just the sweetest thing, she was talking about her published work and she had several books written. I was like, oh my goodness, you're a real writer. And she looked at me and she said, Anna, you're a real writer too. And that just made me feel really, really good. All the warm, fuzzy feelings. But I think that we can be our own worst critic, and we can almost, not even meaning to, put ourselves down and put ourselves into a box. And it was an experience like this that really showed me that I am capable of doing a lot of things, and just kind of reignited that excitement again for writing, but then also for content creation, because they had people there that were influencers, that is what they do full time for work. And so it was really inspiring and exciting to get to talk to them as well, bounce ideas off of them, hear suggestions, and also just get encouragement from those people. So it was a really fun experience. I am now a huge fan of Teva, so I'm just very, very thankful for the opportunity. It was very, very special. And if any other brands want to reach out to me, feel free. I'd be very excited to go.
Yes, please do. Because, the pictures that you're able to share from the trip look like it was just a magical, fun time amongst the group. And I'm really glad you were able to experience that, because just in a few weeks, less than a few weeks, you're going to be hitting the Pacific Crest Trail. And, I know that you've done other thru hikes, but can you share with us what's the process like leading up to getting on the PCT?
Yeah, it feels honestly totally different, just because I think that my life is in such a different place prior to other hikes that I've been on. On the AT, what really happened in order for me to go, I previously had been working as a child life specialist. That was my chosen career path. That's what I went to school for. My role was working on a pediatric unit, helping pediatric patients and their families cope with hospitalization. So I did a lot of education about the medical field, and it was a career career that I was very passionate about. And in the wake of COVID in October of 2020, the hospital system that I worked for had massive layoffs and I lost my job. It was very devastating. I didn't know what to do with my life, but ultimately that is what catapulted me onto the AT. I had a couple of friends that were planning a thru hike. I suddenly had the time and the resources to pursue something like that. And so I did. And it was a life-changing experience. Obviously, I've completely shaped my life now around hiking. So going into this long trail, and even the Arizona Trail and the West Highland Way, they were long trails, but they were not going to be, we didn't have to upend our life in order to do those things. Whereas this trip, again, feels, I think this is probably a more similar experience for folks when they're deciding to do a 6-month trek, because I'm leaving something behind that I've worked really hard to create. And with it being so close, it honestly feels kind of scary and intimidating. It's exciting too to have that freedom and to have been able to make the choice. I think that's been a big standout for me in preparation for this trip. For the AT, I didn't really feel like I had any choice and the events that led me to the trail, so losing my job. Whereas for the PCT, I'm making the choice to push pause and basically just blow up our life to be able to go and continue to pursue the things that we're really passionate about. So that I feel like has been very grounding for me and just makes it even more exciting because we've worked really, really hard to get to this point. We've been so busy because we've been working and saving and trying to get all of our ducks in a row prior to being on trail. And two, being on the West Coast is going to be so different because all of our life is here on the East Coast. And I think we might get a little homesick and not having as much accessibility to our family will be a little bit different. But at the end of the day, we know that they're supportive and will always be just a phone call away. So I think we can take a lot of comfort in that as well.
You know, one big difference this time around compared to the AT is your partner's going to be right there with you on the trail. How does the pack list differ from your pack list on the AT?
So it looks very different than when I did the AT, just because when I started the AT, I was a very novice backpacker. I didn't have a lot of ultralight gear at the time just because it's expensive and I didn't have the funds to make those investments. Now, several years later, I have invested in a lot of ultralight equipment. However, I like to be comfortable, and so I carry ultralight things so that I can carry more things to make me comfortable. I have learned the things that I just refuse to go without. But I think too, with hiking with a partner, a lot of people would think, oh, like you can split weight with certain things. And you definitely can. He and I, though, I think just because we met on the trail, we already had our systems kind of dialed in. And so like we both still carry stoves. We both have our own separate water filters. The only thing that we share now is a tent. And for the longest time, I was very adamant that I wanted to carry the tent. I don't know if that comes from some deep-seated need to prove that I am this like strong, tough, capable woman. What I like to blame it on is the pack that I use. I carry the Gossamer Gear Mariposa. It's their 60-liter pack, and it has this pocket on the outside that is perfect for a tent. It's this very long, skinny pocket, and I just honestly haven't really figured out what else I want to put in that pocket other than a tent. However, my husband's base weight is significantly less than mine, and after looking at the numbers, I'm just like, okay, Kate, I think you probably should carry the tent. I'll let you carry the tent this time, just to save myself a little weight. So I'm experimenting with other things that I can put in my long, strange tube pocket on the side of my pack. So if anyone has suggestions, let me know, because who knows? Maybe I can put chips in there or something fun. Nothing but Slim Jims. I don't know.
There you go. And I got to ask, because not just in my hiking club, but I feel like in the networking community that I'm involved with, there's a lot of women that really want to take on backpacking this year. And a lot of them are starting to build their pack list for backpacking. What advice would you give both women and men who are starting off backpacking and trying to find that balance between entry-level gear versus the high-cost ultralight gear?
Yeah, it definitely can be a barrier for a lot of people because gear is not cheap. It is an investment. So I think with a lot of things, you can purchase a piece of gear, and unless you're on a thru hike and are just going to destroy something, you can have it for a really long time if you take good care of it. I think the things that are probably worth spending a little bit extra on are those big three items. So your tent or your shelter, maybe you're going to be a hammock camper, whatever is going to keep you safe and dry and warm at night is something that you could definitely splurge on. Your pack is another another big investment too. There's a lot of awesome brands out there. Every pack I feel like is similar and yet different enough that it sometimes can take a little while to tweak and to find a brand and a size that works for you. Let's see, what's the big three? Your tent, your shelter, and your sleep system. There we go. So again, what's going to keep you safe and dry and warm at night? So are you going to carry a sleeping bag, or do you want to invest in a quilt? Are you going to spend a little bit extra for it to be down? Down's going to keep you warm, but if it gets wet, then you are out of luck. There's a lot to be said about having friends and connections with other experienced backpackers, because you can learn a lot from other people. That's ultimately how I learned everything. I had no business being on the AT when I started. I didn't know what I was doing, but I went with two friends who were very experienced and were very patient and kind and helped me on my way. So now being able to do that with other people, I think is just a really special experience for me. But there's so many great resources online, whether it be blogs and YouTube videos. I think ultimately, though, the best thing to do is just to test things out for yourself. You are the only person that can decide how something feels on your body. Ultimately, you are the one that's going to be carrying it. So if it's not jiving with you, then you don't need to bring it. Go get something else. And I think too, even on a thru hike, there's a lot of grace. And sometimes we feel like we bought this stuff. This is what we have to make it all the way to Katahdin or all the way to Canada or wherever we're going with this stuff. You can change gear out as you go. Maybe that means mailing stuff home. Maybe that means buying stuff along the way. It can get a little bit more expensive that way, but you do have those choices as well.
Oh, solid advice, Magic. Those are the three big ones that I'm slowly upgrading to some ultralight gear. Is my sleep system. I did finally cave and I got a quilt over a sleeping bag.
Ooh. What was the selling point for you? What made you want to switch?
So I had a mummy style sleeping bag and I'm a side sleeper, and I could just never find the right position in that sleeping bag to sleep comfortably. Once I got a quilt the first night, I was like, oh, this is miles and worlds different from the sleeping bag, and just haven't changed since.
Yeah. Do you have a quilt that has the sewn-in foot box, or is yours like a true quilt?
Sewn-in foot box, and then the little clip that goes around your sleeping mat.
Yeah, I have the same thing as well. And I also am a side sleeper, but I like my feet especially get really cold at night. And so I really value having the sewn-in foot box.
Yeah. You know, I feel like each one of your big thru hikes, you've had specific goals or intentions. And, you know, going back to a longer trek like the Pacific Crest Trail, are there any specific goals or intentions you have for the PCT? And how do you plan to approach the PCT differently, if at all?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that, my ultimate goal obviously is to finish. I want to make it to Canada first and foremost. However, I think that our mindset is a little bit different going into it, just because the PCT seems like is constantly throwing curveballs at hikers, whether it be fires or snow or just all kinds of crazy different closures. I think that it doesn't seem very likely anymore that you can keep a continuous footpath. And that's not something that necessarily is super duper important to me anyway. I am not a purist. I will hitchhike if I need to or whatever the case may be. But I think that just going into it with an open mind of any miles that we're able to complete on the trail are just going to be a great experience. We're out there really just to have a good time. And I think going back to what I said earlier, if we've worked so hard to be able to get to this point, that it just really feels like such a privilege. I feel like everyone that I've talked to at work about us leaving is just shocked that we're able to do these kinds of things. And we really have just orchestrated our life in order to be able to pursue these things that we really enjoy doing. And so I don't want to take that for granted. We are healthy. We are financially able to pursue these kinds of things. And so just trying to keep that at the top of my mind, even on the really bad days of just like, man, why am I out here? Like, I am choosing to put myself through this. Like, this sucks. Whatever. It's been raining for 5 days straight, or it's 100 degrees, or there's black flies, whatever it is. Just trying to keep that perspective of, I chose this, I want to be here, this is incredible, even though it's hard.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched base on that, because, you know, your gear list is one thing, but I feel like one thing that isn't talked about a lot when it comes to thru hikes or just backpacking in general is having the right mindset, because there's going to be some amazing days, you're going to see some amazing things, but there's also going to be, like you said, days where it's just raining, where you're questioning why you're on the trail. What advice would you give for someone who's maybe doing their first long distance hike in terms of, setting the right mindset?
I think the big thing that really kept me going on the AT was advice that someone had given me that you can't quit on a bad day. So even though things might be really tough, maybe you're in pain, things aren't going the way that you planned, that's not a day that you need to get off trail. The emotions are just so big when life is simplified down to just walking. It's that forward momentum is the only focus during the day. Where am I going to eat? Where am I going to sleep? How can I continue to progress forward? And so you feel things, I feel like, so much more deeply. The highs are really high and the lows are really, really low. And you can't quit in the midst of the thunder and lightning and the bad stuff. I think that especially if you decide to get off trail, it has to be a decision that comes with a lot of contemplation, and you have to really be able to make your peace with that. The nice thing is, though, the trail's not going anywhere. So thinking about us quitting the Arizona trail, that was a really hard decision to make just because I felt like it took away some of my credentials as a thru hiker. Here was this trail that I wasn't able to complete. It was very humbling, but also knowing that we came to that decision with a lot of thought and knew that that was ultimately the best decision for us. And the trail is still there. We can go back and finish those miles whenever we want to. So that's my big piece of advice. Don't quit on a bad day. I think too, just trying to surround yourself with people that make it fun. Because again, you're going to have really hard, bad days, but having people that you can laugh through the misery and that there's something I feel like in shared misery that's just this really bonding experience. And I found for me that I love being able to hike around other people. On the PCT, we're actually starting with our trail family that we did the AT with, which is pretty wild. There's 6 of us that are going together. So that's a really special and unique experience for us. But yeah, being able to find ways to make it fun, whether that be people or setting little goals for yourself throughout the day or whatever it is that can just help you find the joy in the midst of this very hard physical and mental endeavor, I think is something too that can keep you going.
I think one thing that I'm going to borrow from your practice on the trail when I take my club members out on their first backpacking trip is your rose, bud, and thorn tradition, where you reflect on the best part of the day, what you're looking forward to, and the least enjoyable moment. For folks that aren't aware of the tradition, can you share a little bit more about it and how you use this practice to reflect on your hiking trips?
Yeah, it definitely started kind of as a joke, in all honesty, when Kate and I our romance was blooming on the Appalachian Trail. At one point, there was one night where it was raining and I set up my tent in a very inopportune place and my tent flooded. And so here I come over to Cade's little Dyneema palace and I'm shaking the zippers like, hey, can I come in there? That was the first time that I slept in his tent and then I just never left. But anyway, I say all that to say that at some point along the way, whether it was that night or another night in the future, I can't remember, we were talking about our day. And I was like, oh, tell me your rosebud and thorn of the day. What was something that was great for you? What was something that was awful? And what are you excited about tomorrow? And he begrudgingly has participated with me every single time since then. And it's funny because it's a tradition that we only do when we're backpacking. Like we don't have this conversation every night when we go to bed, like in our home. But for whatever reason, being in the tent like brings out that conversation. It's something too that we carry into guiding just because it sparks conversations and it makes you reflect and stop and think about, like what was today like? Like what were things that were great? What maybe wasn't so fun? Like, oh, I got a blister on my foot or the tuna I ate for lunch made me kind of nauseous, whatever it is. I heard a fun spin on this the other day, actually, that I'd never heard before. So it was rosebud, thorn, buffalo. And the buffalo was what was something unexpected that happened to you today, which I thought was just kind of funny. Like what was the random thing that is notable that you want to tell others about? I think it's a really positive practice to do with others. Obviously, it can spark some really funny conversations and just lead to deeper discussions. But also, too, it's something that you can practice with yourself of taking a moment at the end of the day. Maybe you're journaling or at the start of your day, drinking coffee, thinking back on the previous day and just asking yourself, what was your rosebud and thorn? Another practice, too, that I want to touch on just because I was excited about it this year. One of my backpacking clients actually suggested this. She every day would write a haiku about her day, which I thought was a really sweet tradition. And we started doing that on that backpacking trip that I was on. And that is a practice too that I want to carry into the PCT. And maybe I'll write them down in my journals, or maybe I'll post those as my silly little Instagram captions. We will see. But rosebud thorn and haikus, I think, are really fun, just easy ways to pause and reflect.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to introducing that to not just my backpacking experience, but hopefully the group's experience as well. And I think I will throw in the buffalo just because I feel like there's a lot of randomness that you come across the trails nowadays.
Oh, for sure. I thought that was hilarious too when it was introduced to me. So shout out to Clayton at Smoky Mountain Guides for telling us about that one.
Now, you've had some truly remarkable through hiking experiences. Before you get on the PCT, I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are hitting the trails for the first time, whether it's backpacking or just day hiking. Looking back at your journey, what's one piece of advice you wish you had received before hitting the AT for the first time?
I think the biggest piece of advice that I would offer to people is just to do it. Do it anyway. Do it in spite of the hardships and the setbacks, whatever obstacles you have to come to make it happen. If through hiking or going out for a weekend trip or whatever it is on your radar and it's something that you want to pursue, make it happen. I think that time is this precious commodity and we get the choice to spend it how we want. And if that's something that you're interested in and passionate about, figure out a way to do those things. A picture comes to mind of, I can't remember the artist's name, I can send it to you later. There was this very silly cartoon that my coworker used to have in her office of the silly little woman like jumping over a canyon or something, and it says, "Even if I'm scared." And for me, that has just always really resonated of, I'm going to do these things even if I'm scared or hesitant, or I have a million reasons not to, if it's something that I really feel called to do and feel passionate about. Again, maybe it's through hiking or going on your first overnight trip, or even just going on a hike in the woods. It's easy to talk yourself out of these things that we are fearful of, whether it be fear of failure, of financial stability, whatever it is, but do it scared. Do it anyway. So I think that's the advice that I would offer, is just to make it happen.
Love that. And Magic, one thing I did want to ask, especially as a returning guest that's a thru hiker, that I've always been curious. Does your trail name continue on different trails, or do some people change their trail name or get a new trail name depending on the thru hike they're on?
Yeah, I think that's a super personal preference for folks. Magic just really resonates with me. It was what I was gifted on, or bestowed, I guess, on the AT. It was who I was on the Arizona Trail. And I feel like Magic is almost this alter ego that I'm excited to get to slip back into. I feel like I become the truest, most authentic version of myself when I'm on these long trails, and that is Magic. So I'm excited to spend time with her as her for these next few months. But for other people, like maybe the trail name that they got just doesn't really jive with them, or maybe they just want a different experience. They don't necessarily need those connections to this previous hike, if that's what it is. So I think it's really just a personal preference. One of the friends that I did the AT with, she is doing the CDT this year, and her trail name was Ranger on the AT. But she texted me the other day that she is considering changing her trail name to Mushy because she likes to forage for mushrooms. So it's just really a personal preference. And at the end of the day, like, we don't get to choose our names in everyday life. So again, that's just another fun, unique thing about being a thru hiker. I like when people get their trail names because they've done something silly or it's been suggested by other people. I think naming yourself is fine, but for me, I just think it resonates more when I like the funny stories of like, oh, I set my pants on fire, so that's why I'm Hot Pants, or whatever it is. I like when I get a little chuckle out of them. My trail name was not that exciting, honestly, so it's fine.
No, but I'm hoping the magic aura continues on the PCT.
You and me both.
Because you had some really great trail magic experiences on the AT. So I'm hoping, the PCT, the tradition continues for you and Kate and your trail family.
I hope so too. It's definitely just a fun, silly thing. And trail magic is just such a neat thing because obviously you're excited about it. It's exciting too to meet the trail angels and to hear their stories. I just love that point of connection. And the thru hiking community is just so supportive, and it's really, really fun to be a part of.
And Magic, you're starting in April on the PCT, and it sounds like you're giving yourself 6 months to complete it. Do you have a timeline set, or are you just kind of going with the flow?
We're really just going with the flow. Again, like we have worked really hard to be here. We've taken time off work, put a pause on our whole life at home, and just want to be able to be out there and enjoy it. And so we will make that as long or as short as I guess we need to with that. One thing I will say about the AT, so we finished in about 5.5 months. And honestly, I wish that we had taken it even longer. I wish that we had slowed down at the end and enjoyed it more. And so I think that could definitely play a part into our PCT hike of when we're really enjoying stuff. Like if we're in a really beautiful section of trail, like especially in Washington, people just seem like they really, really enjoy that stretch. So maybe we'll slow down a little up there. I don't feel like we necessarily hike super duper fast, but we can. But I do like to definitely spend time in town and just soak up the local culture. And I just don't want to be in a rush is the big thing. We'll see how long it takes us. Who knows? We'll stop eventually, maybe in Canada.
Love that. Now, Magic, one thing that we started doing, and I think we did it on your first episode, is we like to do a segment on the podcast where we do a deep dive into our guest's Instagram account and ask them about a particular post or reel. The one that really caught my attention was the beautiful photos from the Big South Fork National River and Recreation Area, where you mentioned hiking with your favorite coworker, your husband, and catching fish with your bare hands, which just sounds awesome. Can you share more about what it's like working and hitting the trails together as a couple?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is just a super duper fun part of our job. Honestly, I have some incredible coworkers, but I'm biased. Kate is my favorite. The company that we work for guides all over the Southeast. And so primarily we're based out of the Smokies, but we guide in Pisgah National Forest in Western North Carolina, then also up in Big South Fork, which is between Tennessee and Kentucky. We even have some guides that go down to Florida and the Everglades in the wintertime. So we definitely stay busy with that. Big South Fork was an area that I had never even heard of prior to this job. It is beautiful, completely underhyped. It's not on a lot of people's radar unless you're, I guess, big into whitewater, but it is beautiful, absolutely pristine. One really cool fact about Big South Fork is outside of Utah, it is home to the most freestanding natural arches, I think, anywhere in the U.S., which is kind of wild. So there's just these humongous big sandstone arches everywhere, just in the middle of the woods. And we're talking like big 200 plus feet. Like you can get on top of them and hike on them. It's awesome. There's a lot of really neat geological features, really pretty rivers, and it's just this magical area that we get to take clients in, which is really special. Working with your partner or significant other can be a wonderful thing. It can also be really challenging sometimes because if we disagree about something, I don't want to fight with you in front of our clients. Like we need to go back here behind a tree so I can tell you that you're being dumb or whatever it is. But I feel like for the most part, just because Kate and I met doing this very hard, mentally and physically challenging thing, we just work really well together. And so I think that then translates into guiding because we're getting to share something that we're passionate about with others. And we get to share that experience together, which is just such an incredible opportunity. I think too, clients really like when we are guiding together just because we play off of each other and we can share funny stories. And one of us will say something that gets the other person going and talking about all these cool adventures that we've been able to go on together. So I think that is definitely a really unique, just kind of fun opportunity. And we've been able to do some incredible stuff from work together. So it's nice to be able to share that. And I value too having a partner that I can come home at the end of the long day and I can talk about whatever crazy thing happened with some crazy client and he gets that point of reference. So that can be kind of nice too.
Magic, that was it for the regular questions. These next 3 questions are questions we asked you the first time around, and I'm interested in seeing if the responses have changed. The first one is about regular routines, whether it's the end of the hike routine, end of the day, maybe it's on a summit. Is there a regular routine that you like to do when you reach your destination or when you make it back out?
I can't remember, honestly, what I shared the first time, but I'll tell you a not so flattering routine that I did my first year of guiding that I have since stopped. After my first year as a backpacking guide, after every trip, I would go to McDonald's on the way home and I would get a 10-piece chicken McNugget meal and I would eat the meal as I drove home. But I would also get a McFlurry. And when I got home, I would put the McFlurry in the freezer and then I would take a shower and then I would go get the McFlurry out of the freezer, take it back into the bathroom, draw myself a bubble bath, and then eat my McFlurry in the tub. It was wonderful. I did that for a whole year and decided that I needed to pursue healthier habits after coming off of these backpacking trips. But in my mind, I feel like that splurge is warranted after being out in the woods for 4 or 5 days with a bunch of strangers. So if McDonald's is going to help me cope after that, then I think that's okay. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I've done after trips this year. I really look forward to my showers after a trip, honestly, just because too in my everyday life, I want to feel like I have really earned my shower. And I think that comes from thru hiking. Now, if I have just like gone to the grocery store during the day and then like come home and sat on the couch, I'm just like, I'm not even dirty. Like, I don't need to take a shower right now versus like being out in the desert for 7 days straight and your skin is so dry and then you've got dirt crusted under your nails and under every orifice and being able to watch that dirt come off. Maybe that's again a thing that I shouldn't admit because now people are just going to think I'm dirty and nasty. I do shower regularly in my everyday life. I want to make that clear.
Oh my goodness. This next one, I'm interested in knowing if this has changed, and it's about your pack list. Is there a luxury item that you're going to be carrying on the PCT that falls outside of your essentials?
Yes, I said it earlier. I like to be comfortable. And if that means carrying a little bit of extra weight, that's okay. A great example of that is that I carry 2 sleeping pads. I carry the thing that I sleep on that I'm very adamant that I have to sleep on is my inflatable sleeping pad. I use the Nemo tensor and have had a wonderful success with that. The only issue with inflatable pads is sometimes they will get holes and you wake up on the ground and that's very uncomfortable. And so I also carry a Nemo switchback, the like closed foam, I call them the accordion pads, and I will put that underneath my sleeping pad, my inflatable one, just to have a little extra cushion should my inflatable pad pop. But the real reason that I like to carry the switchback foam pad is because I use that as a yoga mat. So most mornings I will be the first person up in camp and I like to do a little bit of yoga before I then wake up the rest of camp and say, okay, it's time to start hiking now. So that doubles as my yoga mat. It's definitely a little redundant, but when my inflatable pad has popped before, I've been very thankful to also have the switchback.
I didn't even think about using it as a yoga mat. I mean, it's basically the same dimensions.
Yes, and it's a perfect sit pad at camp or even just like in the middle of the day for lunch or whatever it is. But yeah, I do a lot of stretching when I'm on the trail and I really like having my makeshift yoga mat with me.
And I know for the next couple months, it's going to be all PCT, but looking forward to the rest of 2025, is there any other hiking or travel goals that you have for the rest of the year?
Outside of hiking, some passions that I have or interests and hobbies that I pursue. I've gotten into running this past year. And so last December, I ran my first half marathon and I would like to potentially run a marathon after the PCT. I don't really know though if that's realistic in terms of length of training. In my mind, I'll be in really good shape when I come off the PCT. So maybe I won't need that longer training window. So stay tuned to see if that happens. The other thing that we really like to spend our time doing is playing disc golf. And another goal that I'd set for myself this year is to play in a disc golf tournament. So a very non-competitive disc golf tournament where we're just out there to have a good time. But that is something that I would really like to do. My goal was to actually compete in one before we leave for the PCT, but I've just been too busy to make that happen. But here in East Tennessee, believe it or not, there are a lot of really nice disc golf courses. And so that's been a fun reason to travel for us here recently is to go and check out these new courses. That's been a really fun pastime as well. And it's a good way to stay active and be outside without having to do things as strenuous as running or hiking.
I'm starting to see more and more courses pop up here in Central Washington, and it's definitely got me intrigued. Like you said, it gets you outside. You're not necessarily like running, but it's a good leisurely activity amongst friends.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing too that I'll say about disc golf that was kind of cool, when we were in Scotland, the West Highland Way actually takes you past this really cool ski resort called Glencoe Mountain. And when we were there in May, there wasn't obviously much snow, but you can take the chairlift up to the mountain. And they have the highest elevation disc golf course in the UK. So we played a round of disc golf there, which is really, really special and very unexpected. So I guess that was our Buffalo for the trip, was that disc golf round. So very, very fun.
I like that. that. Well, that was it for the regular questions, Magic. This last section of the podcast is the this or that questions. There's, I would say 50% of them have changed since the last time you were on, but we're going to give you 10 hiking related topics. You choose which one you prefer out of the two. You're more than welcome to say neither or both, but the first one is, when it comes to packing, do you like to pack a trail lunch or trail snacks?
Oh, I guess I'm a big snacker. I can snack throughout the day, but I definitely want to have a big dinner if that's the case.
And then I feel like Tennessee is known for their waterfalls, but if you had to choose between these two, waterfalls or summits?
I think summits, honestly. We do have some beautiful waterfalls around here, but I think it is hard to just capture the essence and the awe-inspiring views that you see on a summit.
And this next one's about trail systems. If you had to choose, would you rather go up switchbacks or just straight up?
Probably straight up. It's going to really suck, but it'll get it over with quicker.
And I think I know the answer to this one, but trek poles or freehand?
Trekking poles for sure.
I gotta ask, because you've been on multiple trails, have you seen backpackers without trekking poles?
Yeah, it definitely is a personal preference. It is something that the more you hike, the more beneficial you find them, just because you start to notice like, oh wow, my knees actually do feel different when I am using these poles. I was very resistant to them at first. I felt like they made me look really goofy, but now I don't even really like doing day hikes without my trekking poles, especially if I have a pack on. We really encourage our backpacking clients to use them. They are going to be weird and uncomfortable at first, but if you stick with them, then they just become part of your body. And now I feel naked without them.
So true. I recently wanted to try day hiking without my trekking poles because it wasn't going to be a super strenuous hike. And it took me about 2 miles to get my dynamics without the pole.
Yeah. Like what am I doing with my hands? You know, like I guess I'm going to hold them awkwardly on my little day pack. Like I don't know what to do anymore. Walk around with little dinosaur arms. I don't know.
That's funny that you bring that up because one of our friends, Becca, she made a great point that when she doesn't have her trekking poles, she has to lift up her hands like she's being robbed because she wants to get the blood flowing out of them.
Yeah, no, that's another really good point. Yeah, everything. You should just use trekking poles. That's just what it comes down to.
And this next one, Magic, is about your footwear. Are you rocking trail runners or traditional hiking boots?
Trail runners, for sure.
And then here's another trail system question, but loop trails or out and back trails?
I do like a loop because I like to have the like, oh my goodness, my car is coming up soon, which I guess you get in either way. But I do think that there is something to be said about an out and back trail because you get to see things that you might not have seen or noticed the first time. And two, it can be nice to have those contexts of like, oh, here's this landmark. That means I'm getting close to my destination or whatever it is. Both are beautiful and wonderful. I like all trails. I don't discriminate.
Like that. I'm interested in hearing the answer to this one since you're a guide. Group hikes or solo adventures?
That one, it's hard. I do like group hikes because I'm very social. I think it is fun to be able to share these experiences with other people. However, having done so much guiding and hiking with other people, I do really value the time that I get to spend alone in nature just because then I get to hike at my own pace and for my own enjoyment. That is a great thing about guiding, but also the downside is that my sole purpose is to be there to keep other people safe and happy. So if they want to hike super duper slow, we're hiking super duper slow. If they want to stop and look at every single flower, I do too. That's great. But it is nice to have that autonomy when you're solo hiking of being able to move as fast or as slow as you want, stop and look at what you want to look at, and make the decisions based off of you.
Then these next two are some of our hardest ones, but sunset hikes or sunrise hikes?
I think sunrises are prettier in all honesty, but I don't necessarily want to be up early enough to see them. So I guess that's sunsets by default.
And then here's another equally tough one. Spring wildflowers or fall colors?
Oh, I think wildflowers. The Smokies are known for their fall colors. However, the springtime too is especially beautiful just because we have this abundance of wildflowers here. It seems like every week something new is blooming and you just have to pay attention to those small little details in order to find all of these different beautiful wildflowers and just little critters that can be found as well.
And then the last one, do you prefer slow and scenic or fast and challenging?
I think it really depends on my mood. I do love to go slow and just kind of mosey on down the trail, but it is very gratifying sometimes to really put the pedal down and get up a good sweat and just kind of cruise. Sometimes, though, that cruise, that moving fast, is actually not really going that fast, but in my head, there's smoke coming out behind me.
Well, Magic, that was it for the this or that questions. I am really looking forward to following your journey on the PCT, and I can't thank you enough for coming back on the podcast. It was an awesome time speaking with you. For folks that want to follow your journey on the PCT, as well as checking out your blog posts from previous hikes, where are some of the places they can follow you along, both on social media and online?
Yeah, so I'm most active on Instagram. It's Anna McKinney 22. From there, you can link to my blog, or click on the link to my blog, rather, which is magicinthemountains.blog. Those are really the two best places to keep up with me. I try to keep them pretty up to date and active, but Ivan, it's been such a privilege to be back on. It's been so fun to get to connect, and hopefully I've shared some fun insights for listeners.
And that brings us to the end of this episode alongside Magic. We extend our heartfelt thanks to her for coming on the podcast, and we wish her and her partner an amazing time on the PCT. Be sure to follow her on Instagram at Anna McKinney 22 and check out the episode show notes for more. New episodes will be dropping every Monday this spring, with occasional bonus episodes on Fridays. To ensure you never miss out on these thrilling tales, remember to hit the like and subscribe button. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to check out our vibrant community on Instagram at Hikes and Mics. We'll be sharing episode visuals, my own personal hiking content, and so much more. Let's stay connected and continue to inspire each other on this remarkable journey. As we bid farewell, remember to tread those happy trails, embrace the great outdoors, and keep the spirit of adventure alive. Until next time, my fellow explorers, happy hiking. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, ursaminooroutfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, ursaminooroutfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order.